Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we are skipping the intro and getting straight into how Manchester United lost 2-1 against Nottingham Forest in another awful display. We're going to talk about the tactics that we saw and who was to blame. Was it the manager? Was it the players? Was it a combination of both? Let's get into it. And we'll start with Manchester United playing the ball out from the back, where, to be honest, life should have been incredibly easy, because Forest don't apply pressure to the ball with great intensity, yet United still struggled. So Forest basically went with Chris Wood, and United went with Onana, and played the ball out from the back, initially, pretty easily. So United get out from the back to this situation, then we see Onana come forward, join Evans and Varane in a back three, meaning we're 3 versus 1 up against Chris Wood. That's called an overload, meaning that we should quite easily be able to play the ball forward through this situation, move the ball further up the pitch, and play with a bit of speed and intensity. But no, for some reason, Onana, Evans in particular, they seem to want to take about half an hour on the ball before moving the ball forward. What's the game plan there? I'm not too sure. Was it to draw Forest onto them? If so, didn't work. So that's the first problem. United played the ball out from the back in the first half, just really slowly for no apparent reason. Forest didn't stop us, United stopped them. So, that's the first issue. Next up, we have the shape. United then build possession in a 2-3 shape, with Kobbie Mainoo often as the pivot in the first half. Eriksen's going to push further forward with Bruno Fernandes, and we've got the 2 fullbacks. Again, making life pretty easy for Nottingham Forest. They can go Gibbs-White man for man with Kobbie Mainoo, the wingers with the fullbacks, and then the striker Chris Wood just has to force the United centre-backs to play one way. And again, with the United centre-backs taking way too long on the ball, it's really easy for Chris Wood to shuffle side to side. So even if United do get this ball and flip it out the other side, Chris Wood can just jog over. Ball goes out the other side, Chris Wood can just jog over and force United to play down one side of the pitch. Again, it's a problem for United. The ball isn't being moved with enough speed and intensity, but also the structure isn't good enough. A solution would just be to drop Eriksen into this position, play with a double pivot, and you will outnumber them and play through. The other solution would be to do literally what we've done in the last game, invert Dalot, drop Eriksen deeper. Again, it would have allowed United to overload this area and move the ball a bit quicker. But no, that doesn't happen. Now, the one tactic that we did see from United in these positions was the long ball over the top. This was one area where it looked like we might have some success, and Erik ten Hag mentioned this before the game, something that we'd worked on, and you could see that. Johnny Evans or Rafael Varane with the long ball over the top for Bruno Fernandes. But to be honest, Forest dealt with it pretty well, quickly snuffed that out, nothing going there. So back to ball progression. Can United move the ball forward through the pitch? Well, in the middle of the pitch, no. Because Kobbie Mainoo is completely isolated. He's the only midfielder in the team because the other two are often so high. He can't get on the ball, he can't dictate because the midfield is disconnected. There's no passing options, no ability to move the ball through the pitch. Now you might say, well, that's not true. At times, Eriksen dropped deeper, and you would be right. But when Eriksen dropped deeper, Kobbie Mainoo was then pushed higher. So again, we've got this disconnect in the team. We're playing with a solo pivot, which no top team really in the world does at the moment. We're still doing it. Solo pivot, can you control the game from there? Not particularly. So therefore, we are more reliant on wide combinations. If we can't progress the ball through the middle, we've got to rely on our wide combinations. And that's fine. It's okay to rely on wide combinations. But not in this team. Because when you've got Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Antony and Bruno Fernandes trying to combine, you're in for a long night. And it was a very long night. I thought Antony, no offence to the guy, but he was absolutely horrendous. But Bruno Fernandes, awful. People are talking about Antony. He's obviously getting a lot of criticism online because he's an easy player to criticise. But Bruno Fernandes was absolutely terrible in this game. But what it felt like down this side of the pitch was 3 complete strangers playing alongside each other. Like 3 players who had never met each other before were just chucked onto one side of the pitch and we hoped they'd create something. In terms of attacking patterns, there was no pattern of movement. There was no rotation. It wasn't, say, Fernandes gets the ball, goes to Antony, he cuts inside, and that's the cue for Wan-Bissaka to go round. Every attack looks completely different, so forced, so direct when it doesn't need to be. Take your time, get your foot on the ball, work an opening. No, let's just get the ball forward too quickly. It doesn't suit the players we've got. It doesn't work. Then we've got the other side of the pitch, where Garnacho didn't really get that much of the ball in the first half. Pretty much all the play went down the right-hand side. Garnacho was restricted to the amount of ball that he got. When he did get the ball, he was often quite isolated. But again, his dribbling wasn't really quite good enough. And also his end product in the final third, his decision-making, not really good enough. So, again, that's a problem. So now we've got 3 main issues. First of all, we can't progress the ball through the middle because our tactical structure is wrong. There's not enough players in central areas deep enough to progress the ball. And when we do have opportunities, players are moving the ball too slowly. We've then got our right wing is a catastrophe. just not even worth talking about. Absolutely terrible, no patterns. And then left-hand side, again, no patterns, relying on individual brilliance from Garnacho, who wasn't able to provide it. He's a young player, couldn't provide that brilliance, so we have nothing. You could arguably counter this by putting your best attacker in his best position on the left wing, but we didn't do that in this game. So that's basically the story of the first half. The one bit of credit I will give United in the first half is that we did defend the counter-attack pretty well. When United lost the ball in these areas with players pushed quite high up the pitch, when we did lose the ball, I thought we won the ball back quite well and stopped Forest playing on the counter. I thought Kobbie Mainoo done a good job of stopping those transitions. That's the one bit of praise I'll give United. Second half, half-time changes. Kobbie Mainoo off, Scott McTominay on for tactical reasons to change the game. Yep, Erik ten Hag watched that first 45 minutes and thought, what do we need here? Scott McTominay. Yeah, that will make the difference. Unsurprisingly, Scott McTominay playing as a 6 didn't bring tons of control to the game. I know, quite shocking, right? Sarcasm for those of you that aren't aware. Scott McTominay doesn't address the issues which we had in the first half, which is a little bit confusing. So, we bring Scott McTominay on. What's the issue in possession? We don't really have anyone we can play through in the middle. You know, there's no one there who's going to carry the ball past their man, because McTominay's too deep to do so. Bruno Fernandes and Eriksen can't carry a ball. It's just not their game. But no one deep enough to pass through the lines, and the only player that could was McTominay, but he doesn't really do that. We've still got the same wide problem. Nice. And we've also got the same problem on the other side, on the left-hand side. Okay. So that's a problem. So we're an hour into the game, and literally nothing has changed. Not great, except one thing has changed. We've brought Scott McTominay on for Kobbie Mainoo. Now, on the ball, I don't actually think it affected the game that much. Not that much. We lost a bit of control. But what it did do is leave us defensively open, and we can see that for the 2 goals.
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, jerseyfifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFIFA for 10% off when you order.
So we've got the first goal here, and I'm going to go through this step by step with you guys. I haven't got this pre-made, you can watch me do this. Now what I want to focus on is the Manchester United double pivot in the midfield. We've got Bruno Fernandes and Scott McTominay on this occasion. Christian Eriksen here is a little bit higher up the pitch. So we've got these two. What Forest have basically done at this point in the move is played the ball wide outside of the United structure. Forest are going to do something very simple. They go wide and then they come behind our midfield. So if we just refer back to the tactics board to see what I'm talking about. So let's say United are back here. Basically what Forest are going to do is they're going to work the ball wide like this and then come back into this area here between our centre-backs and between our midfielders. We've seen it all the time this season because our midfielders don't track runs very well. Our defence is too deep. We've seen it a lot, but let's go back to it real quick and cover it. So the ball gets worked wide. Watch Scott McTominay here, Bruno Fernandes. Do they track this area in here? Particularly also watch this player here for Nottingham Forest. Do we pick up these areas? Well, as the move plays on, if I just silence this real quick, let's have a look. Do we cover these areas? Okay, so we've had one ball played in there far too easily. The player has got on the turn in our penalty area and still no one is close to him. That's a full turn he's done and no one's got close to him. But also, if we refer back to our double pivot, have they tracked any of the runners? No. Right, okay. So now Johnny Evans is going to be responsible for going across to close the ball down, right? He has to go here. What this is going to do, of course, for Forest is leave this guy here open to receive the ball on the edge of the penalty area. Bosh. Pretty simple stuff. Manchester United is far too easy to play round the midfield initially. The defending is too passive out wide, and then the central midfielders don't track the runners on the edge of the penalty area. At the same time, the centre-backs to communication is poor. Players aren't passing on players well enough. So, you know, when someone runs off your back, you either follow them yourself, or you tell the next guy, he's coming, by the way. But United don't do that. I don't know why we don't do that, but we don't. But at least the second goal was completely different, not repeat of the same errors. Okay, I lied. Sorry. So, counter-attack this time. A little bit more of an acceptable situation because at least the attack has happened quite quickly. But Nottingham Forest once again are down this right-hand side and attacking the Manchester United defence. Now this time we've only got a solo pivot because Bruno Fernandes and Eriksen are much higher. We've got Scott McTominay in this position here. Now, if we count the players on screen here for both teams, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Forest players, okay? Remember that. How many United players, excluding the goalkeeper? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so largely, we should be able to go man for man here. There certainly shouldn't be a free player anywhere, right? Right? As the move plays on, watch McTominay here, and also watch Gibbs-White here. Also watch the two centre-backs and their communication, their inability to pick up Chris Wood and also deal with something else at the same time. And we get something which looks like this. So Elanga slows the ball down well. Suddenly, Gibbs-White makes this little dart towards the near post. Or towards the edge of the box, I should say. Now, Wan-Bissaka is distracted by the overlapping run here. He thinks he's a fullback and he's got to deal with that job, so he tracks that run. So now Gibbs-White is completely free. At this point, we need a little bit of communication from someone on this football pitch. So, Rafael Varane, Johnny Evans, there needs to be a discussion here that one of us is picking up Chris Wood, one of us has to at least be aware of Gibbs-White existing on this pitch. Also, at the same time, whilst all of this is going on, Scott McTominay, you probably don't need to mark Dalot that tightly. Obviously, he's not actually marking Dalot, he's getting ready for the next ball, but again, the spacing is wrong. If you look at spacing between players, you can't tell me that is a defence which is evenly spaced and ready to deal with the attack, right? So again, Elanga comes inside, plays the ball to Gibbs-White. It's just so easy. The centre-backs are nowhere near. And our holding midfielder, who came onto the pitch to change the game for tactical reasons, just nowhere near. The goals are so similar to each other, it's ridiculous. It's just the second one happens a little bit quicker, so you can justify it a little bit more. But it's just absolutely horrendous. It's a terrible performance once again from Manchester United. I'd love to sit here and talk about the tactical intricacies of the game, but truthfully, there weren't any. United in possession, I have no tactical patterns to talk about because we were just void of any patterns. There was no pattern in possession, apart from playing with one pivot, wide fullbacks who would eventually join the attack and come a little bit narrower, a lot of men forward. Let's hope something happens. That was kind of the pattern in possession. Out of possession, it was poor. I can't even be bothered really to go into the pressing side and things like that, because again, it's the same thing all season long. We'll quickly cover it, I guess. Basically, the problem for United when pressing high up the pitch is the same problem as all season. The ball gets played one side, United lock on like this, the far winger comes inside, we leave the other fullback way too open, ball comes across, this player carries the ball forward, or a midfielder gets dragged out, and now one of their midfielders gets the ball in these positions. It's just so easy for Forest to play the ball out from the back because the United press is very, very poor. The same problem as what we saw in the first half against Villa the other day. It's a massive issue. The other issue was just that Antony and Wan-Bissaka again were playing like two players who had never spoke to each other before. I mean, the amount of times someone would get the ball here, Yates for example, and all that's going to happen is Dominguez is going to move inside like this, and the fullback's going to fly forward. And that, by the way, is enough to unlock United's defence, because the amount of times this ball could then be played, because Antony hasn't applied pressure, but Wan-Bissaka hasn't dropped off, at times he's even stepped forward, it's just absurd. It's just absurd. The other issue was that tactically we were done here, by the way. Tactically, Forest were by far the better team. For example, in their build-up phase, what we would see is a team which moved the ball about, with a little bit of speed. And in this 2-4 shape, they had one more player than United. And when you move the ball quick and have the spare player, you're always going to find a free man. So the ball can be popped about quickly, find a free man, United are passive, and again, Forest moved the ball forward and hurt United. That basically is kind of a brief summary of tactically what went wrong in this game. I'm not going to give you a long, in-depth breakdown because this game doesn't deserve it. It's not worth your time to tactically break this game down because the tactics were borderline not there. And the ones which were there were the same issues as all season long. So in terms of who is to blame for United losing 2-1, you guys can decide. For me, I'm looking at Erik ten Hag because the setup was so poor. But you guys might blame the players. Bruno Fernandes, awful. Antony, awful. McTominay, not great defensively. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. For today, we are finished because I really don't think it's worth talking about. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you've enjoyed me returning to the channel. If you have, subscribe, like the video. But apart from that, we are finished. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.